Hey guys, welcome back to the Stormwater Creek podcast. Today we sit down and talk to David and Joey from AZ Longtails. These guys are using small to medium sized John boats with a mud skipper Longtail to get into some really skinny backwater and find some unfished territories there in Arizona where they live. So we sit down, we talk about modding out a John boat, how to find a John boat. So those of you who are kind of on just like me and the boys, budget conscious on what you can get, we're going to talk about how to find a John boat, what to look for, and then some things to do to make it kind of fit your style. So sit back and enjoy, and thank you guys for listening to the podcast.
All right. Well, David's relatively new to the hunting and fishing type stuff.
Okay.
So why don't you go in, David, about how you got started recently into fishing?
Yeah, I've never gone hunting. I do own guns. I'm very minimalist, and that's also going towards the boat that we have. Going with this, one cylinder, it's real simple. Like most of my guns are just 22 LR, caliber guns. Either the Ruger 1022. I also have it in the pistol, and it's just simplicity of keeping cheap ammo. Just stocking up, like having 5,000 rounds of it. It's so cheap, and all my guns use it, so it's not like you have to be carrying so many different rounds. And same thing on what I drive for when we go off roading. Me and Joey, we both have Toyota trucks. His is a 4-cylinder. Mine's also a 4-cylinder. Mine's a 1985 Toyota pickup with a solid axle, so it's like real bare bones. You could fix it out on the trail if you had to. And Joey's a little newer model, Tacoma, 2013, I believe.
Yeah, 2013.
And, and it's also, but it's like the 4-cylinder, 4x4 manual transmission. It's just kind of like as simple as things get.
Yeah. Ready to go.
Exactly. So now for fishing, I barely got into it last year. Pretty much next month. My Arizona fishing license just expires, so I'm gonna have to go renew that. That's how long I've been fishing. My wife bought me kind of like a a half-day fishing trip from San Diego, and that was the first time we did go actual fishing and got my first fish out there. So I really did like it, and being born and raised in Yuma, never actually going out, exploring the river, I did feel like I was missing out, especially in the summer where you can't really go off-roading. Yeah. I'm like, explore this. I was, during the quarantine, I was spending a lot of time with my nephews, and they're about 15 years old, and they were also exploring everything with me. So it was nice taking them out and checking out. We were just bank fishing and trying out different parts of the canal, the river, and seeing what worked, what didn't. It was nice when it was like 2 other people, and each one of them, we were all just trying to, figuring out what we wanted to do or what we thought might hit on the water, catch bass.
Sure.
And you didn't really stick to any rules or, say like, well, this is the way that has to be. And it's, really led to, really finding out the easy way to do bass fishing. And then for hunting, just never gone out there. There's duck hunting. I know there's pigeon hunting out here with the shotgun.
Yeah. You mean dove hunting, bro?
Yeah.
The same. I don't know. It looks the same to me.
Yeah, they're meat's meat, man. You shoot like the city pigeons. I'm from Dallas, so being up from here, we've got those city pigeons, those big rock doves. They're giant, and then we have the white wings and the mourning doves and things like that. But I've heard Arizona's got some solid dove hunting out there.
Yeah, essentially we live in the dove capital of the world practically.
Yeah.
So there's all these fields out here that have all the grain around this time of year, and it's just like one big dove factory. We just have like an unnatural number of doves.
Black cloud.
Yep.
What about ducks? Do you guys get a lot of ducks down there?
Yes, we do, and that's something that I'm very interested in now that we have the Mudmotors. So I have 2 boats with Mudmotors on them. David has one now. We recently just took out this guy named Dre Harper out on Mitri Lake, which has most of the duck hunting out where we live, and he's a big avid bodybuilder guy, and you would have never expected This guy would practice for hours and hours duck calls in his room growing up growing up.
Mine are right here. You know, so
that's what I heard, yeah. And he's a big avid duck hunter, like building duck blinds, all that kind of stuff. He does it every year. And he wanted us to take him out for a YouTube video to kind of showcase that side of him, that outdoorsy side. So we took him out fishing. We got him to drive a mud motor around. It was some real fun stuff. And I think this year he said he can take me duck hunting, and I've never been before. I go dove hunting here like clockwork every year. September 1st, like I'm calling out of work, bro.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to tell you.
Holiday. It's the start of
a holiday.
No,
every year.
The same way.
Every year. I've had a Remington 870 12 gauge since I was 10 years old, man. And every year I'm out there with the doves.
Exact same shotgun I have used for a really long time is a Remington 870 pump. You know, I've killed a lot of dove and a lot of ducks with it. You know, so
I definitely got more shotguns than that now. So David, if you want to go get your combo license this year, doves. It goes on for 14 days.
14 days.
And get going, yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's right around the corner. I drove out and was doing some scouting tonight, actually, after work. Just drove and I do a lot of public land hunting, and so drove out to some public land just to kind of see what the birds were doing, where they're moving, trying to see where I can get in front of them at come opening day. So yeah, it's a passion. I'll tell you, waterfowl hunting is one of those things where it'll bite you and it'll bite you bad, and you guys are halfway there already with the boat. You'll be able to open up a lot of terrain and a lot of places like that. So go to
and nobody runs these motors out where we live.
Yeah,
like straight up. Like there's 2 other guys here in town that do, as far as I know. Every now and again, because of the Marine base, we'll have a few guys, 1 or 2 that are from the East Coast that'll have these kind of boats. But for the most part, they're not popular here.
It's just all
we have hundreds of miles of waterways and wetlands out here that people relatively don't explore. All the river people, a lot of the fishermen out here, they call them river roaches. They're just the people that go with their high-powered river boats and everything, and they're out there on the river all summer. They don't know, they can't get into those waterways, and the fishermen, the same thing. The big speckly bass boats can't get into those areas either.
Yeah, those outboard boats run shallow.
Yeah, where all the virgin bass are that haven't seen your swim bait before.
Yeah, exactly.
So and we're just trying to showcase that we're taking basically these pieces of junk, they're sitting in people's backyard, old pieces of vintage aluminum, strapping on a mud skipper kit onto them, with just a Honda clone motor, and we're doing some pretty big things with them. We're traveling pretty far distances.
It's amazing, I mean, and for us here, we started with, we started walking in to hunt. The genesis of us getting our mud motors was just having a need to get further away from walk-in spots on public land to hunt with. So we started off by walking on foot. Then we started by, kayaking in, and then we were like, wait, man, like, let's get a motor, let's get a boat. So I got a 1432, just old, like you said, John boat I bought for $300 off of Craigslist. And that's why I saw your boat and I was like, man, that's like the Leaky Creek right there. So mud skipper motor, 7 horsepower mud skipper motor, same thing. And, it was awesome, to get to be able to take that thing out. And, so I've loved seeing you guys' channel, on your social media content's great. Your YouTube's awesome to see. So I think it's a really great way for people to get into the sport without having to drop, a bunch of money on a big boat and get to places where not a lot of people can get to,
Yeah. And it's different, than an outboard. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it.
Yeah.
But like us being on the West Coast, it's a cool thing to me. It's a lot like paddleboarding. It's a lot like, all those kind of things.
Agreed.
Kind of put together.
Yeah, no, we're the same way. I mean, I pull up at a boat ramp and, when I get there's some dudes with surface drives, but, I pull that Longtail out and they're like, what? That thing's crazy looking, I put my boat in on like just a boat ramp up here in Dallas. So it's just a recreational lake, and it just was. These people were like, I don't even know, like, what is that thing? Why does it stick out so far? Like, what is going on with that motor? And I was like, man, I can get into water that's like an inch deep, 2 inches deep, and just kind of push through that mud and get into places that no one could ever imagine to get to, if they're not in a service drive or some sort of longtail motor like that.
Yeah, we have 2 rivers that are nearby us. One is the Gila River, and one that's the Colorado River. And that one goes all the way up to where the Hoover Dam is.
Okay.
So out of Vegas, that area. So that's all the Colorado River. So all of that watershed comes down from all the way up there. My chickens are acting up. The watersheds that are out there, there's hundreds of miles, probably thousands of miles of backwaters that fall through those areas.
Yeah.
And there's all these hidden lakes all over. There's a YouTube series that was out probably about 5 years ago called Dirty Missions. And these guys took in tools, chainsaws, and everything, and cut through all the cane and took a bass boat into one of these lakes that hadn't been seen for like 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And they're all over the Colorado River because they're hard to get into.
Yeah,
and that's something
we
definitely
fly behind your head. Speaking of
oh, yeah. I believe it. I'm out by the fields.
Oh yeah.
This way there's and then over there the date trees. So that's
wow.
real where we live. They have big old giant date plantations.
Oh wow.
So it looks very kind of tropical, even though we're like in the middle of the desert.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I just think it's really neat to see what you guys are doing there in Arizona and what you got turning out. So, a couple of things I wanted to talk about was just, when you're, just for somebody out there who's like thinking about getting into this kind of craziness of like the small boat, kind of army, if you will. If you're telling somebody to how to go out and find a boat, what are you looking for? Where are you looking for a boat at? And what are some things to watch out for?
I mean, the number one thing that I always look for, just because of where we live, is that everybody has a bill of sale, but we need a registration in Arizona.
Okay.
So everybody, I have I can write you a bill of sale for it and everything else. And you're like, like that's so much work because you have to go back to the Fish and Game, that they were the boat owner, and then finally get it registered. If they already have the tags in hand, then they can sign it over to you. And that's one of the biggest struggles in me, primarily in finding a John boat in the beginning, is the actual title ownership in the beginning. And I think Texas, you have to have the motor and the boat registered together, right?
You do, yeah. So same thing, right? I got my John boat from a buddy of mine, and just like it was, he gave me a bill of sale, and I had to go through that process of like taking it up to Fish and Game, getting them to inspect it, issuing a serial number for it, and then being able to register the boat. And it was a fairly, it was pretty easy once I knew what paperwork to fill out, but trying to figure out what paperwork, make sure everything was good, and having all of the paperwork in order is kind of the hard part. That once you got up to Texas Parks and Wildlife, it got done pretty quickly. So I have to actually go re-register my boat this year. So I'm going to go through the process of re-registering again.
And ideally, John boats are. Oh yeah, go for it, David.
I was going to say on my boat, I bought it out in California, in San Diego. I bought it off from an older guy, and he had the registration from San Diego. And he, all the paperwork was there. And I re-registered it in Arizona, and it was pretty easy, except that the boat I bought, I believe, was from 1975, so it didn't have a hull ID. So that was where the issue came, So now the Arizona Fish and Game had to generate a new hull ID, but they did have to kind of do the same bill of sale, call the original owner, and kind of get that information. But it almost sounds like, like even from California. California's not a title state. A bill of sale would have worked, but the bigger issue was just that the boat didn't have a whole ID. So in that aspect of when you're buying a boat, what to look for, which for me it was fairly new because the boat itself was $250 when I bought mine. You see registration like, all right, we're good. But if I would have known, okay, the whole ID is needed, it's something you'd look into when you're looking into an older boat like that.
What were you gonna say, Joey?
Oh yeah. So and then after that point, John boats are easy to repair, man.
Yeah.
Like you just take some of the steelet, the water weld, all those things. Just go over all the rivets, and you're back in business again. These boats go through generations of families and peoples and stories and adventures.
Yeah.
It's not like your kayak or your inflatable boat. That's not gonna stand the test of time. These boats don't rust. They don't change. They just
No
get
doubt.
scars and memories attached to them. And that's it.
Yeah, that's why I love my boat, right? It's just the same thing as you guys have. Mine's an old. I don't even know how old it is. It's old, and it's got a big dent in the front. When I got it, somebody had run it into a tree, and I like I said, every year with the rivets, I just at the end of the year after duck season, I flipped that boat over, and I found some stuff called Glue-Vit, and just use that, and it's a hardcore like sealant, and it's worked really, really well. And I just went over every aspect of basically the bottom of the boat, any place where it would leak, and just fix that boat up, and it's tight now. I have a bilge pump on mine as well, just because I'm a little.
I keep telling David he's get a bilge pump.
Oh man, they're so easy. Yeah, I got one for like $30 on Amazon. Just set it in there. I kind of put it at the back, down by the transom on the bottom, wired it up to my switch panel, and I'm good to go. So
Dave likes to cut open a water bottle and start.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it. That's a David bilge pump.
I use the same thing. Water bottle cut in half and just was going. Just for a long time I ran a trolling motor on mine. That was it. I just had a trolling motor, and that was all I had. And we've done. You guys have on your Instagram, it's doing like hood rat shit with your friends. Well, we went out one time. I had 3 dudes in my boat, and I had a guy, just with a 30-pound thrust trolling motor. I had a guy tied off who was sitting in a kayak, and then a kayak tied off to him, dragging gear, and it was sketchy. So
that's how you do it.
You can put those things through it, and so that's what I love these John boats about. So, just talking about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So my story with mine, I've had my John boat, the SS10 Can, the V-Hull, the 12-footer, probably since I was about 16 years old. I got it from my stepdad, and it had a Johnson 8-horsepower motor on it, a 1985, and that thing ran forever. It ran good. But when I would be out in the river and stuff out here, it goes from deep to shallow, and you'd always be concerned about hitting your lower unit on sandbars, because it would tear off your lower unit. Like that's what happens to the people out here. That's why a lot of the power boats and stuff like that are inboards out here, so they can skim over some shallow stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went and got a 15 horsepower, and that ran good for a little bit, and then that one started having problems as well. And then all of the parts for either one of them were getting harder and harder to come by. It'd be like a plastic piece that would cost me like $200.
Yeah.
To get it to work again, like a throttle linkage or something. And I'm like, man, this is just getting too much. And then I saw a guy down here in Yuma. He drives a big generally 01 painted boat with this hot rodded 13 horsepower, crazy looking outlaw mud skipper mud motor on it.
Okay.
And he's always blowing motors like every other week, but he goes fast.
Hey man.
He goes like 25, 30 miles upriver, 25, 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
All the time in that boat.
That's hauling.
And I saw him, and I was like, that's a cool motor. I haven't seen anything like that before. And I was asking him questions about it. He's like, yeah, there were just these cheap tie kits that you put together. And I was like, would it work on a V-hull? He's like, it would, but you wouldn't get all the benefits of a flat bottom. He's like, you could try it out. I haven't seen too many people with them on V-hulls. I was like, and then I was having problems with my motor, and the same thing. I'd be running a trolling motor, and I'd be still trying to do long adventures.
Yeah, with 800 pounds of batteries, right?
Yeah. It'd be just like one, and I'd be like dead by the time I came back. But like as you can see, so I decked up log like stuff. So I didn't do like total tiny boat nation or anything. I do have like a light bar.
Okay.
I have the the bow mounted trolling mount, and that kind of stuff. And then the deck is removable, and I carpeted the seats underneath it. So if I did want to, like, take the deck out, like I could, like,
Yeah.
on the carpeted seat.
Completely removed.
But what I usually do, I always have a paddleboard paddle. Because when you're standing on the deck of it, it's a lot like a paddleboard. And my motor, that's how I would steer my boat. I would stand on the deck and it would be like one big giant paddleboard. And I would get into all those bass spots. And it was eye-opening just to build a real simple deck.
Yeah.
How you could sight fish so easily. It didn't cost me hardly anything to build this deck.
Yeah, I did something very similar on mine, right? Just a piece of plywood with some carpet over the top, and it just sits on top of that. And then when after duck season's over, then that's what goes back in the front of the boat. It's pulled off right now because we're getting ready to go do early teal and things like that here in Texas. And so, but after duck season, come about February, March, when I'm getting the itch to go hit crappie again and things like that, sand bass, then I'm putting that front deck back on, do the same thing you guys have. So.
Yeah. Well, going back to the Mudmotors. So I just said, you know what? Like, those motors are so cheap. I was like, I'm running into so many problems with my old two-stroke Johnsons that I have. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. So I went over to that guy at Eddie's house. He set me up with it. Showed me the ropes on, like the learning curve on how to use them.
Yeah.
And the very first place I took the Mudmotor up was Mexico.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm not kidding. I was literally in Mexico at this place called Morelos Dam, and that's that guy. He has he lives near the border, and that's where he always goes fishing all the time. There's this little stretch of land that's on the western border of Yuma, Arizona, and it borders Mexico on the Colorado River, and that's where kind of the river splits off into Mexico into a spillway through a canal. And it's a really deep, it's like one of the deepest parts of the Yuma area, Colorado River, out that way. It's about 50 some feet, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Just in that one spot. And I took my mud motor out that day and went up and down, all around. The Mexicans on the other side of the river were talking shit to me. It was fun.
Taking their bath.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So, I mean, and it's a really good place to fish because a lot of people are a little scared that they're gonna get some cross-border traffic or anything.
Yeah.
But nothing like that ever really occurs over there. It's really chill and mellow.
What I would want to do there, because pretty much is like technically another four corners, because you got, from the Colorado River, half, the west side is California, the east side is Arizona. And then at that portion, or technically, there's the Sonora, which is the Mexican state in Mexico, and Baja California, which is the other state. So you pretty much, there has to be a spot in the river where it's that four corners kind of thing, because in Mexico, the river divides Sonora from Baja California. You just cross the river and now you're in the other side of the state, of the Mexican state. So, that's where, the geography, even though it's just a river or just a spot in the river, even just having a landmark has the four corners that it does over here with Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. It's not geography-wise. It's just, it's right there, but nobody really appreciates it or knows that, there's something there like it.
Yeah.
That's cool. I never thought of it that way. But yeah, for the longest time living out here, I didn't even really acknowledge or understand that there was a western border with Mexico and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you think that it's, looking at a map, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, you're right there. You kind of have like you said, a four corners type thing going on. That's
That's interesting. You ready to do some missions in Mexico?
Yeah, there you go. Let's see that. So, As far as talking about kind of just building out your John boat, so you guys have a pretty cool video out there. You got a really good video about kind of a real super easy lightweight deck. One thing that I'm working on is a DIY grab bar, and I see you guys just came out with a video a couple days ago about a DIY grab bar. Like, what do you think about your grab bar? Have you kind of seems like you put it through some of the paces in the last couple of days. What do you think about it? Any tips for people building a grab bar?
We did run it this weekend, and I let the Dre Harper drive my boat. That's the one. It's because that one's easier set up because it did have the grab bar. It had the Z bar as well, so it does let you do a little bit more stand up driving rather than just sit down with a straight bar. And he's 200 pounds lean muscle. He did end up breaking it off, but it was just it's pretty much R&D. This is the only the second time that bar was on the water. So
it's not bodybuilder proof.
Yeah.
But I'm only at like 140 pounds, so it's kind of like where that it was great R&D and like in that side of things, because the way I had it set up was meant to be like modular where you could remove it.
Yeah.
But I could see where I can reinforce it. I've seen other ones where they kind of go off the side of the boat, and that's where I'm afraid to put holes or put stuff like if it tears off, because I have it mounted on the bench somewhat of the boat, and whatever damage happened, it didn't affect the reliability of the boat.
Yeah.
That's where if it was side mounted and that tore off, now you got a leak coming in or something more serious.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the issues happening up front. The design, the height, all that's been working well. It hasn't affected casting or anything there. But once you start doing tight turns, that grab bar does come in handy because you got something you could hold on to when you're especially with the Longtails, because you do have to shift your weight, kind of like a dirt bike. You're steering with the power. You're throttling out to steer from the backside. And I'm gonna see what I could redesign. The design of the bar itself is good. It's just more the mounting setup. I know Joey's gonna have one of the Mud Skipper grab bars, and he's gonna have to figure out how he's gonna want to mount that, because I believe those have to mount to the bottom of the boat.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm a bit hesitant on drilling holes, and if something tears down there, it's gonna be a bad day real quick.
I don't know. Maybe bolt it to a plate.
Yeah.
And then bolt that plate to the actual bottom of the boat. I think it's going to be the way that's going to need to go down, and possible reinforcement to like the rear bench seat.
Yeah.
I don't see like this aluminum stuff, man. It's pretty flimsy. Like you can hear it.
Oh yeah.
I can see like a little.
I put floorboards in mine, so I've got a reinforced floor on mine, so that I can so I'm not standing on that metal when it's bouncing. But that gave me a lot of rigidity in the boat, just from a standing perspective. From
any issues with it getting moldy or anything?
No, I have a piece of like, what's that, foam on the bottom. And then I have the boat, and they're completely removable. So if I get them super wet, I'm pulling them out and set them up so they can get some air circulating in there. They're just sitting in there, and that's it. And then I have some like 1x on the bottom of the plywood, just to kind of give it a little bit more, to keep it from flexing as bad, just give it some more stability.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about putting, like how I did in this one, these rubber mats. These helped out a lot on my V-hole for sure.
Yeah, it's nice to have that, just because it doesn't get slick. It's not as hot, in the summertime. I mean, obviously you guys deal with heat just like we do, and in the summertime, you're standing out there, boy. You like you said, if you're not covered up and you're not careful, you get burned real easy, real quick. So
I have those problems. That's for sure. I cover up.
Oh, I'm the same way, man. I don't. I try to avoid the sun at all costs. So, as far as kind of some other things, just modding out that Mud Skipper motor, that 7 horsepower motor. That's, like you said, just kind of a Honda clone. Have you guys done any aftermarket work on yours? And if not, what are some things that you'd like to do to it?
David, I'll let you go on that. You're a bit on the technical side of life.
Yeah, compared to Joey does have his line of work. He is a firefighter paramedic. So he's more really good with quick response kind of things. That's real benefit of actually having him out in the water or off-roading.
When it gets hurt,
He's going
to put you back together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm more, I guess, on the technical side. I'm more of a solid state electrical technician. We repair welding equipment for my line of work.
Okay.
So I know how electronics work. Small engines. In that aspect, I'm pretty familiar with. And for these tests so far, since we're kind of going from the ground up, we wanted to run a lot of stuff stock and seeing how those things handled. What were the weak points, and before we just, because it's easy to throw. You can buy a stage 1 kit for the Predator 212, which is what I have, and it's only another $100 or so shipped, and go from there, which is fairly easy. But we wanted to go from stock and seeing what each additional component did. So far they've been working good. I think on my engine I barely have 4 hours on it. It's not nothing too not, I would say, not enough research to see how it's handling stock.
Yeah.
But before I start modding out, I'm sure there's definitely improvements, either improvements that could improve reliability in the long run, or improvements that could improve horsepower. So right now I'm keeping it stock. I know Joey did get a Tilson 212 motor. We still haven't ran that one to see how it goes, but from what
I ran it on the V-hole. So when I ran it on the V-hole by myself, I was able to hit 15 miles an hour.
Oh wow. Okay.
When I had the Duramax 7 horsepower on the V-hole, I could only hit 11 miles an hour.
Okay.
And that was the max I could go because all the drag off of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
From it being V-hull.
Yep.
But the Tilton is a 10 horsepower motor stock.
Oh,
and
wow.
It comes with a flywheel that's rated to 10K. It has upgraded valve springs. It has something to do with the carb jetting and everything else, and it has a higher compression head.
Yeah, that's what I've seen a lot of people do.
Yeah, so it comes 10 horsepower stock, and I'll show it to you guys right now. So this is the Tilton 212. This is the 10 horsepower motor stock. It looks just like this other 7 horsepower motor Duramax, but it is upgraded from the inside.
Okay.
It's not electric start like this guy. So what the advantage with this guy is that when you have this on your trolling motor battery, since it's electric start, the electric start acts as an alternator, and it'll charge your trolling motor battery. So it does have that advantage in that. But with the Tilton here, I'll fire it up for you guys real quick.
Yeah, the electric start's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, the electric start's nice. I'm not even gonna lie.
It's nice for me when I'm duck hunting and it's 30 degrees outside and I'm cold and wet and ready to get back home, and I just turn a key,
Yeah.
Well, let's see how this guy starts real quick. We'll see. So that's what it is, if you can hear me. So that's the 10 horsepower. Coming down the shaft here, we do have the brass bushing on it, which is nice because you can steer around the water without worrying about without burning up your bushing. But
okay, that's nice. I like that. Yeah, that's what I'm like I said, I've got the 7 horsepower. My buddy has a 30 horsepower surface drive, boat.
Yeah.
And it's just like trying to keep, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get to the boat ramp like an hour early, get in the water, and I'm going to head out. I'll see you. I'll see you out there.
This Tilton, though, is comparably priced because if you were to get, like, say, a Predator stage 1, you're probably going to spend an extra $70, putting it together. You're already over the price of what this motor was.
Nice.
This motor was $194, and it's 10 horsepower stock from the factory. So it's already built into those specs. So it gives you that extra kick.
Yeah, that's nice to have.
And Tillotson also makes another motor, their 212R, which they free up the muffler a little bit, and then they put a little bit more compression into it, and that guy's producing 12 horsepower from the same size. So that's what I'm debating. There's a lot of people that mod up these Predators. And there's a guy here in town who's a motors expert who just got into these. And when he took the Predator apart to take out the generator and everything, he's like, it was one of the cheapest motors I've ever seen. Put together. And he's like, I was going over with how the Tillotson's built a little bit differently and reinforced, and he's like, yeah, that's a way better motor.
Yeah, that seems like the way to go if you're trying to get a little bit more punch out of them, for sure. So,
I will be testing out the 13 horsepower soon.
Nice.
I have a Predator that's rebuilt now.
Okay.
That I'm gonna put a 13 horsepower kit onto the V-hull probably first, and then onto the 1436 and see how it compares to the 10 horsepower Tillotson, because the combo of the 10 horsepower Tillotson is 75 pounds with the kit on there. With the 13 horsepower kit and the 420 motor, that's 135 pounds. So that's a pretty big weight difference off of your transom for 3 horsepower.
Yeah.
So we got to see how that performs in comparison.
Yeah, it's because that weight's always a factor. I'm a little bit bigger boy than you guys are. I'm about 210 right now, 215. So
they make everything bigger.
Get that weight down. Yeah, for me, I try to keep my boat to a 1-person or 2-person max. And then we put a lot of gear in my boat, and I run the gear out, and we put people in his big boat. So he's got a 18-foot by 6-foot wide, flat bottom, Vader glide boat. So it's
when I look at the prices of those, they're incredible. The people that are into the real mud boats, like they're spending more than bass boats on those guys.
Oh yeah. They're crazy. They're crazy expensive. If you
they just have like a big old tank on the water.
Yeah, and there's some really cool boats out there. Like those Pro Drives that are, they have a full reverse, and the whole shaft of the motor rotates back underneath and lifts the boat up and pushes it. You're talking about a $20,000-$30,000 boat minimum for to get into something, and it's crazy. How these boats are. You see these boats, and it's insane. What the doing,
And I believe that's what we're trying to showcase. There's a company called John Yacht that's on Instagram.
Okay.
That has kind of a similar kind of value that we do with these John boats. So I had a conversation with the guy, and he told me that over in South Carolina where he is, there's always in somebody's yard this really nice bass boat that never gets used, and this hunker junker John boat that's right next to it that's always getting used.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that thing, you're going to catch more fish the more time you're out on the water.
No doubt.
And having these inexpensive John boats is kind of showing that there's not as much of a barrier to getting to the outdoors as what people would believe.
There's not. It's just if there's a will, there's a way, So, I think we're perfect examples of that. You guys – we don't have thousands of dollars laying around to jump into these boats. If you're going to, you don't have to have a ton of money. I'm into my boat now after a couple years, maybe $1,000, right? That's
motor, that's where we're at too.
Mods, batteries, fish finder, that's everything, life, the whole 9 yards, so.
Yeah, this guy here, I bought the hull for $100, and it had some big holes in there that I repaired. The kit right here was $320.
Yep.
And then this electric motor itself, the electric start, this guy was $210.
Yep.
So hardly any money at all. and we're doing 26 miles upriver, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, that's kind of one of the other things I wanted to talk about. I mean, you guys put some distance on these things. So you ran recently like 26 miles in one day up the river. And, you know, kind of what was your experience in these boats, you know, after running a boat like that long? What was your takeaways?
For mine, I had the Predator. It was a stock. It was on mine would probably be, it'd be more like a skiff boat. It's 12 feet by 34 inches at the bottom of the boat. It did well. It was going upriver, and I imagine because of the skiff design, it's, you know, it doesn't get much resistance, just going off the top, so it doesn't really feel the current. And, you know, I was averaging around 14 miles per hour up current. I believe I averaged I hit the 13-mile mark before I had to fill up, because with these engines, since you're tilting them, I believe when you tilt it, you know, even if you have half a tank, if you're tilting it too far back, your fuel kind of goes to the back of the tank and then go to the fuel pickup. So you know, the engine will start kind of like surging because it's not getting enough fuel. It's all just gravity fed. It doesn't have a fuel pump that's actually supplying pressure to the carburetor. So I did have to refuel around the 13 mile per hour mark. On the way back, we did, you know, drift just because we're going down river and we're actually fishing. So I'd say at least let's say a mile is going to be just drifting. But no, most of the, you know, but it was getting late, so we're like, yeah, we needed to drive downstream.
Let's get back home, huh?
Yeah, and it did do yeah, come on. I got my little girl right here. But no, yeah, you know, going upstream, there was a landmark we did want to hit, which we called off on hitting because I did, you know, our crankcase, my crankcase was getting pretty hot. You know, you could start seeing blow by coming out of the carburetor because it was, you know, I imagine it was starting to burn oil because of the heat. And yeah, if you splash water on the bottom of the crankcase, the thicker part, you know, it was just steaming off. So you know, you imagine the crankcase itself is getting around 220 degrees is hot enough to make water steam. So performance-wise, I think I started hearing a bit of a knock at that temperature. So that's kind of where, you know, it's like, all right, we'll just stop. I think we stopped twice, you know, going upriver, you know, for 20 minutes or so, letting it cool off.
I didn't have those problems on the Duramax though, at all. On the Duramax 7 horsepower electric start, I had zero of those issues.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the most I've run is about 10 miles in one setting. I'm also running, in, you know, the most times I'm doing this is I'm running in, you know, 30-degree weather and dark, you know, so it's a little different, you know, and so.
The day that we were out there, it was 115 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so you're starting off at 115, you know, before you even turn the, you know, before you really get started. So, yeah, it's, but that's amazing. You guys put that kind of miles on those things. That must've been I think a lot of for me working in the small boat is just really becoming more confident about being in the boat and being comfortable with the fact that you are really close to the water. You know, you're not up off the water, up out of the water, and you're right there with it. So, just kind of from a confidence standpoint, what do you guys think that kind of a trip did for you for just being in those boats?
David, I mean, me, like, I've been on John Boat Adventures my whole life, and that in itself, like, now I'm not scared of crashing a lower unit, you know?
Yeah.
I have an expert amount of, you know, confidence within with operating a John boat on the water. But I'll let David go on it because he's very new to this hobby, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. On these, you know, with anything from Mud Skipper, those parts all work great. You know, I do like that they made the weak point being the prop, where it's cast aluminum. So if you do hit something that breaks, you know, we carry extra ones and they swap out fairly easily. On my side of things, I do carry or ordered additional hardware, which is extra prop nuts and doubling up on the hardware that we would utilize to get that parts replaced, or at least hardware replaced, not so much on parts. But when you're going upriver, it's at least there's that you can rely on. If something does happen, you just coast down. I know Joey's been exploring that area quite a bit, so I had a good guide, and and besides being out in the desert, you always prep for long extents of time. If you bring enough water, enough food to be out there for a couple hours, you know if it's just a 1 hour trip.
You don't want to get stuck out there in that heat, so that's for sure.
Yeah. I try to carry it probably about a 2-gallon with me.
Yep.
Usually, I do drink a lot of mineral water. I do bring that on the water with me because that has a lot of minerals in it. And it helps out with the loss of electrolytes when you're out there. Because when you drink a lot of purified water, you lose a lot of those electrolytes. And then if you drink a bunch of the sugary Gatorades and stuff, you start to get you'll get muscle cramps.
Yeah.
From being in that kind of heat. But going back to like what you said, like with how it affects your confidence, on the water, because you are on these little tin cans. I'm used to doing those kind of long trips, like in various different ways. So if I would go on a dirt bike ride, I would go on a 100-mile dirt bike ride. If I would go on a bicycle ride, I would do the same thing. On the John boat, I would go as far north as I could till there wasn't no more sun and come back. With the Mud Skipper motor and its reliability, having that generator motor that's meant to run all day long, like I feel very confident with it.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of a learning curve with the Longtails. You're more part of the boat than say you would be with an outboard.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a workout, you got to muscle around a little bit, but in turn, to me, it's pretty fun. That you are a little bit more part of the boat. It's kind of like it's not like you're just driving the boat. You're like riding a dirt bike or a jet ski up the waters.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things you guys talked about was prop size. I think on one of your videos, you're saying you were running like a 7.5-inch prop. I think it comes standard with like a 6.5-inch prop, right? And what is that advantage of getting that larger prop? Do you get a little bit more top end speed or more torque? What is that really picking up for you?
Yeah, for myself, I did like the 7.5 on the 212 with the 12-foot John boat. It did give me that top end speed, which sometimes when you're traveling, you want to keep up with your buddies if that's an issue. It's easy it did want to stall out earlier in the water, but it also you could adjust your lower RPM to be around 1100. And it won't, you can compensate for that because even at 1100, that's a pretty low RPM range to be with for these type of motors. What I did feel that that was a benefit or the changing factor, because when we did the prop size from 6.5 to 7 to 7.5, I think we even did an 8.5 just to see how it ran. These shafts, when the 6.5, it's easy to put it, the full shaft underwater, and it maintained the 3,400 RPM and push you at it was around 12 to 13. It was comparable. 1 mile per hour difference isn't a big difference. With thinking about the long run of putting less load on your engine. Yeah. But once you went to the 7.5, it wanted to stay about half the shaft or the prop above water. So it had a very different characteristics of how the shaft wanted to be, and still gave you that thrust. And I think on these shafts or the Longtails, that's probably the design they're meant to be, like half the shaft on top of the water and just kind of going on, pushing you that way. Just because if you think about it, the way the shaft would be, I think we haven't tried different length shafts, so that could be another aspect. But I think on the stock Mud Skipper shaft, with the 7.5 gave it a better angle. Well, that could have been the angle was better with the 7.5, riding halfway on the water. As to 6.5.
Okay.
And, it did give me a better top end speed. The RPM was actually, that was odd. The RPM was the same range, at the top end, it was still like 3,400, which was probably like, you're not revved up to, 4,000 or 3,600, 3,800, you're not hitting the top end. You're more in that power band.
Yeah.
And at least that's what I saw in my little boat. But I know like Joey's 14, it's always the one hauling
on the 14 with 2 people and 2 coolers, it operated best with the 6.25. And then what I found with both of my holes, the V hole 12-foot and the 14-foot, adaptable to all conditions, the 6.5 was the best overall prop.
Okay.
It just had like, okay, so if you're going to get into current, it can handle that. If you had a little bit of weight on board, it could handle that. It didn't rev too high. To me, the 6.5 is the most adaptable prop range. Okay. If you had just to keep 6.5s in your boat, you would probably be just fine in all conditions.
Yeah, that's what I'm running right now, and it's one of those things where I'm like, at one point, are you just kind of like, is it an extra half mile an hour? I'm not looking to set a land speed record. I'm looking to get to point A. So
yeah, and that was the deal with David going upriver. That definitely could have been a factor of why he was starting to overheat. He was running that 7.5. Even though his skiff design, it's I believe it's from the 70s. Yeah, it's like that Louisiana skiff style welded together boat.
Yeah,
where it's kind of like a V hole, but it has that flat bottom that comes up. So it skates through the water and it's very nimble. It carves really well. Like you can carve on it like a jet ski pretty much. It just has that feel.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to unmute David here. I don't know why I got him muted. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. So just from a standpoint of just kind of your wildest days on the water, what is kind of some of the craziest things you guys seen on the water, and what's kind of a crazy water story that you got?
I guess one of my cooler ones going on the Instagram post. So nobody has claimed this awesome place. So I went upriver a good couple of miles, and on the sandbar that's remote, you can't get to it off of the shore. There's cane everywhere. There's no way you can come down into it for miles. Somebody built a tiki hut in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Just randomly, like a nice tiki hut. They brought all their tools in. Their tools are still there. They had put a park bench underneath inside of the tiki hut. And I parked on the island and took a picture. And I joked, I tagged this country singer, Cody Webb, in it. And I put in the post, I said, tell us who built this island, wrong answers only. And I put Cody Webb landed on this island after getting kicked out of the yacht club for cutting donuts.
I did see that.
And then Cody Webb on there, he responded. He was like, "Where is this little piece of heaven at?"
Yeah,
but nobody came forward as to like who built it or anything. And it's gotten a lot of hits on it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, they I don't know. It had to have been somebody who, I would guess it had to have been duck hunters.
Yeah.
Because duck hunters are always building up blinds like that, but they just took a piece of palm tree and just put that thing together into a tropical looking tiki hut.
That's a pretty cool spot you guys got there, for sure. Good place to go and get some lunch or something. So, David, what about you? What's the craziest thing that's kind of happened in your outdoor experience so far?
Well, I'm really green into boating. That's actually, I've only been on my boat 3 times, and before that I've only been on pontoon boats, so it's like a little party boat, and I was young.
Sure.
So I didn't really get a party, I just enjoyed the boating side. And unfortunately, I don't have any good stories yet.
Good days are to come.
Yeah, Joey's buddy, he said that he almost like sunk his boat, and like at least, that's at least a story to tell.
Yeah. my buddy, so I bought his Longtail off of him because he went and bought a bigger boat. He put a 12-footer on with like a full-size Yeti cooler and like a 300-pound guy on the front of it on a 12-foot flat bottom. And he was headed out from the dock, and he went to do a sharp turn, and the corner of the flat bottom scooped into the water, and then it capsized from there.
Oh.
He lost everything. It was just barely hanging on by the flotation foam, and he kind of dragged all the way back in to shore. I guess it took him hours.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
But I mean, we all have those stories, you know, like me when I had the 1985 8 horsepower. I went 20 miles upriver, and then into some backwaters when my motor decided to take a dump on me, and the plugs fouled out, and I didn't have any extra plugs with me. And the same thing, like I had to drag myself against the cane toolies all the way back because paddling upstream is like terrible. And then I broke the rules of don't go downstream.
Yeah.
That's I had to do all that. Right? I was heat exhausted as it could get. It was one of those like 115-degree days. And I had to jump out of the water, and then when I finally got to the dock and I thought somebody would be there, there was nobody there. And I had to walk a mile from the north dock where I was at, again through the desert to where my truck was, and finally get out. So I mean, you'll learn that you need to always be prepared. One of the things too I carry with me because of the climate that we have, a lot of times I'll put something salty in like a packaged pickle.
Okay.
So that way, you're getting those salts and electrolytes.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Because when you're sitting inside those aluminum cans, you're kind of baking.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of reflecting back on you, like like aluminum foil.
Oh yeah, you're sitting in a piece of foil basically. So
yeah.
I'd say that one good memory I do have on boating is actually the first time I ever went on a John boat, and it was with Joey. And it's on the north side of Yuma. It's the Cacho recreational area, which is on the California side. And we went on his SS Tin Can, and we just went upriver. We were out there with our girlfriends at the time, and yeah, we were just driving upriver, and we there was like on the sandbar this bald eagle that just caught this fish and just eating it. And I was like, the first time I actually seen a bald eagle out here in Yuma or in this desert out here. And I was just amazed, like, yeah, there's all this wildlife out here that, it's not that far out. And, it just amazed me because, I didn't think there was bald eagles out here. And, well, there is, but never that I seen one in the wild. I thought that was pretty cool. I know Joey was out there. He remembers that day.
Yep, I do. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I love being in the outdoors. I try to spend as much time out there as I can, but definitely, guys, get out and Joey, get your boy out and get him onto some pigeons for sure this year. So
I don't know about no pigeons. No, the pigeons like to all stay by structure.
Yeah.
So like with the doves out here, we got mourning doves and white-winged doves.
Yeah.
And that's how we hunt out here near the culture or the agricultural areas out here is those two birds.
Well, guys, I really appreciate the time. This has been an awesome podcast. I mean, if anybody, is listening, where can they find you guys out on Instagram, and where can they find you out on YouTube to check out your content?
So on Instagram we're AZ_long, and then not tails like a tail of a dog, but TALES, like Tales of the Crypt.
Yeah.
So AZ Long Tails.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have a lot of tails after all these adventures.
And then on YouTube, you guys are the same thing, AZ Long Tails, right?
Yeah, but without the underscore though.
Yeah, we'll have a link in the show notes, and obviously when we post up the podcast, we'll tag you guys in it. So, thank you guys very much for the time today and for the information. I always like to share with. I always like to talk to other people who have got the passion for these John boats and these mud motors out there, because there's not a lot of us.
Yeah, I've noticed that, but that might change in the future, man. I keep seeing us out there.
start buying John boats before they go up in value.
Oh, exactly. Get your boat now. So, guys, thanks for listening to the Stormwater Creek podcast. Make sure you guys go give these guys a listen and a view on YouTube, and make sure you're following them on social media. They've got a ton of great content coming out on a kind of a daily basis. You know, I'm always anxious to see a notification when I get a new video from you guys. I'm like, what are you guys getting into next? You know, so
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know the next video is kind of like bulletproofing the mud skipper.
Okay.
Definitely, it's kind of been hot.
The bronze bushing.
That's what I definitely check out, because I'm wanting to look into that, just because I run in that mud so much, and it's such shallow water, trying to get up into those little sloughs to catch that flight of birds. So I'll definitely check that one out. So.
Yeah, it'll be the DIY. You still need tools, so ideally the video will show you what you need to purchase. While you're purchasing that, what to get off Amazon as well.
Yeah.
So when anything comes in, you're set to go without having to run to the parts store.
It's not a DIY project unless you've been to Home Depot at least twice, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for listening, and go check these guys out.
Yep. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stormwater Creek is the best. Grinch, the captain. Abe, the helper. Jordan, the problem solver. I hope you like Stormwater Creek. Stormwater Creek.